So this is going to be a much shorter webinar than normally, because the thing is, this is about the new updates that we just introduced this week. And the thing is, there were a few technical updates necessary for this panel, because the thing is, when the moment Adobe Photoshop released their first 22 version, so the 23.0.0.0, it was a very buggy version, so it broke our panel. So we worked around it, and immediately after that, Photoshop introduced version 23.0.0.1. So they fixed their own bugs, but at the same time, we've also, let's say, made our panel a little bit more robust and more foolproof and more bug-proof for whatever Photoshop Adobe is going to break in the future. So it's an essential update. Okay, it's more robust. So that's what I'm going to explain today. That new panel of ours, in combination with the new features that Photoshop introduced with the latest version, and those are very important features. So the thing is, the most important feature that they introduced was the automatic object detection tool. So basically, what they did with that is one of the most important changes in terms of creating selections of the past few years. Even more important than the automatic sky selection, even more important than the already existing subject selection tool. So this is going to be so important for this panel, because basically what they've done is create a new feature that's almost tailor-made for our panel. And that's what I want to show today. Okay. Also, what I want to say is that with the latest version of our panel, we've introduced a new primary knowledge hub. So I think most of you have already seen them, but it is, where is it again? This new information knowledge base. So I'm going to put everything that I know about the panel, all sort of news, blogs, whatever that is related to the panel is going to be here on this new Artisan Pro blog. Okay, so you can access this new information hub just by going to the panel. Here it is. This is a new knowledge hub from the panel that you can easily access when you go to the panel and just click on the new cloud button over there. Okay, so all sorts of information is going to be there over here. It's still in progress, so we're going to add a lot more new stuff in there, and you just have to see for yourself. Okay, and especially this part is going to be important with the latest news, the latest updates, etc. So that's also new with the panel. What's more, okay, I have some new UXP development news. So for all the people who are waiting for the new UXP version of the panel, we've made some very big improvements. So what we are actually doing right now is build the panel up from the ground up. So it's going to be completely new. And I can tell you already that it's going to be very different from the existing panel. So the thing is that not only we're going to build it from the ground up, so it's going to be a completely new technical base. It's going to be much, much faster. There are also some features that are going to be removed. For example, features that are a little bit outdated, like you see here, those things, you know. So what I've been doing right now is build new features that are quite exciting. So basically, we're also adding new features that are based on the latest Photoshop technology to make those black and white standard conversions even better. But on top of that, I believe that I've mentioned before in previous webinar, well, actually someone mentioned from the audience that if I could build a button that if I click on it, sort of magic button, that you would that it would instantly create something that looks very much the Joel kind of images. Well, that's still, yeah, you said that. Okay, so someone else as well. Well, that is still impossible, but I can already tell you that we're getting very close to that ideal point with the new panel. So it's going to be quite a big improvement in that panel. It's going to be a completely new panel, but still with all the great features that are already there. So basically what I always wanted to create is the right tool for the right job. So the right job in this case is creating fine art images in black and white or in color. Okay, so that is for me the most important job at hand. And I wanted to create a tool that is exactly the right tool for that right job. So it's a little bit different than all the other tools that you see on the internet. They're basically more generic tools. But this is specifically targeted at creating fine art images. And I think that will become even clearer today after this demonstration, but especially with the new UXP version of the panel, that I think first quarter next year, we're going to release this new UXP version of the panel that will, well, that is going to be so much faster than anything else that we created before. Okay, so what's more, okay, there's also a new image upscale feature in our panel. So I'm also going to demonstrate that just briefly. And well, the major thing that I'm going to explain today is this: the improved workflow as a result of a PSCC 22 update. So that's what's going to be on the agenda for today. So if you remember from the previous webinar, but the simple, the intermediate, and the advanced workflow. So if you still remember that, then I talked about this specific workflow, a simple workflow. So what has changed is very important. So basically, last time I said, okay, a demo without mask and with new, let's say with only quick selections only with the lasso tool. Well, that has been replaced by the new object detection tool by Photoshop. And it's going to be so much better, okay? So what's the result of that? The result is that we can have now more quick and improved control over shapes, albeit still less than with accurate hard mask, and improved control of light. It's still not so very ideal for architecture, but you know, you can also do architecture with this. Also, it's going to have implications, a very positive impact for, let's say, the intermediate workflow, okay, and also for the advanced workflow. But I'm not going to explain this, the advanced workflow. I'm not going to explain the intermediate workflow, only the simple workflow, the fast workflow with the new object selection tool, because I think that's the most important feature of the panel right now. So basically what I'm going to explain today are all the things, or all the adjustments and all the type of photos that most people would say that I cannot do with a panel. So a lot of people still think that the panel is only made for architecture, but it's not true. The only reason that I'm always doing those architectural demonstrations is because processing architectural photographs is much harder than, let's say, still life, portraiture, street, or landscapes. And the simple reason for that is that when you work with architectural objects, there are geometric objects, so they're very predictable in the sense that if you see a geometric object, you know that you need to have a straight line or a predictable curved line. So if you're one or few, or let's say a few pixels off in terms of creating selections, then you cannot get away with that. But if you're working on, let's say, landscapes or whatever there is in natural forms, let's say leaves or hair or fur, you can just create a rough selection and you can just feather it. That's okay, you know, but you cannot do that with architecture. So that's one important thing to know, that that makes architecture so much harder to process. On top of that, of course, you know that if you compare landscapes or portraiture or whatever, if you compare it with man-made objects, then you know that in let's say natural objects, you have a multitude of planes. So basically, you have no edges, right? So you have just one or two planes. While with architecture, you have those very defined edges. So basically, you have also a multitude of planes, but very distinctive edges. So you always need to separate those planes from each other in order to be able to create a good perception of depth. Okay, so that's the most important. Those are the two most important things why architecture is always so much harder than landscapes or portraiture. So what I'm going to do today is no architecture at all. I'm just going to do some landscapes. I'm going to do some still life. I'm going to do some even some street. I'm going to do I think 4 demonstrations, 50 minutes per demonstration. So it's going to be very fast, but still with a very distinctive fine art kind of look. Okay. So
do you have time for 2 questions?
Yeah, absolutely. Go ahead.
Okay.
asked them already.
Jorge wants to know if the new panel will be available only for the new Mac chip or any computer.
For any computer, yeah.
And the other question is,
so sorry, to which new panel are you referring now? To the let's say the one that we are going to release next year, or this one?
Yeah, the one for next year, first quarter.
Okay, they're going to be available for any type of computer. But of course, the major benefits are especially visible for M1 users, but they're also visible for normal computer users like Windows, whatever, or older Apple computers.
Thank you, Joe.
Yeah. Any more questions?
Yeah, I had a question. The super button that you hinted at,
yeah,
will that be kind of like the button in ACR where you click it and it kind of does a pretty good job of, fixing the whole photo?
No, this is going to create the fine art photo. This is going to be, this is something that cannot be compared with that. So basically you push that button and what happens is something that does so many things in the background that actually you don't have to do that much anymore, okay, in terms of fine art visual styling. So that's what we're working on, and it's going to be.
Isn't there going to be some decisions you have to make as to go one way or the other? So could I suggest that you can press the button multiple times and get different results?
You can, well, actually, there's going to be, let's say, a sort of medium kind of button, okay, but some medium, let's say, average kind of results, some with some high key results and some with some low key results. But in any case, they have a very, let's say, distinctive look. And it is only meant to get some inspiration. Okay, it's not meant to use as a final result, even though you can use it as a final result. But we're going to be using all the latest Photoshop technology in there and combine it with my let's say my own methods and techniques, put them together, and well, it's going to be quite exciting. That's what I think. All right. Okay, so enough for the presentation, because I'm not going to do a lot of presentations today, so I'm just going to do this. So let's get started with something like this. Everyone can see my screen? Yeah?
Yes.
Okay, I'm going to stop my video. So you got, I think some people are still on with the videos, but anyway, I'm not on. So this is, okay, hold on a minute. Just going to enlarge it just a little bit. Okay, this is a typical street shot, okay, something that's not very normal for me to do. I took this a few years ago in Venice. Well, if you ever been to Venice, you know that you can see a lot of those nuns walking there over the street. Okay, that was a very interesting thing. So what I want to do is to come up with something that looks like a fine art kind of take on this specific street scene. Okay, and I'm only going to be using a few tools in here. So first of all, of course, the black and white conversion tools. I'm also going to be using the advanced adjustment tools and the microzone adjustment tools, and maybe some toning. And that's all. So basically what I've explained the last time, I'm just going to convert it if needed. I'm going to be using not the lasso tool anymore, but of course the new object selection tool. Okay, I do a little bit of this with the local contrast darken and the advanced adjustment darken light and the microzone adjustment and some toning optionally. So basically it's still the same as the previous time, but now even more powerful and even more accurate. Okay, so that's what I'm going to do. So let's get started with the selections first. So I think most people have already seen what you can do if you already have the latest Photoshop update, what you can do with this new object selection tool. So if you're on a Mac, for example, then I think that you can find it over here by clicking on the three dots over there. Then you can find that new object selection tool in there. But I have it already here. Okay, so that's that thing there called object selection tool. So normally, I would just select this with the lasso tool, just a rough selection. But I don't need to do any rough selections anymore. I can create pretty accurate selections now quickly with the new object selection tools. Basically, what you do then, you set it to, for example, rectangle or lasso. I just use a rectangle, set it to normal, okay, and then just do this, okay. I want to select this none. Okay, it takes a while. Okay, I have to refine it a little bit. Okay, let me do it again. I just want to come up with a little bit more accurate kind of selection. I can also click on this if I want to. So then creates a selection. Okay, let me have a closer look. I'm not going to spend too much time on creating selections. It's not a super accurate selection, but it is more than good enough for this panel. So I think this looks quite good. It selects the nun, her arm. Okay, I need to get rid of this part over there. So just quickly click on this, subtract, and then just indicate that part. And then I think it should be good enough. Okay, there I have it. I have the selection of the nun. So I'm going to save it, so I don't need to do this every time I need it. So save selection, call it N. All right, there we go. And then of course it's going to be stored over here. And you can already see it's a pretty good selection, but it's still a little bit rough on the edges. Okay, but it's not a problem for this panel. So what I also need in this case is to have a selection of her face only. All right, so that's what I'm going to do. I'm just going to take this again. I'm just going to roughly click on that. All right, so there it is. I've selected her face. It's not super accurate, but again, it's good enough. So I'm going to save that, call it face. All right. I also want to have a selection of her cloak. Okay, so that's what I'm going to do. So I've already created that one with the object selection tool, the N. All right. Now I'm going to load the face and just subtract it. So now I have them all, right? So I'm going to save this too. And again, you don't need to save it, but it's always easier to just save it. Let's call it body. Okay, there we go. And now I just want to create a quick selection of the background because, of course, this is my figure and that's going to be my ground. So what I'm going to do is to just load the entire nun. Okay, here it is. I'm just going to inverse it and then I'm going to save it. Save selection, called ground. There we go. So they're all in there in a matter of a few clicks, right? It's not that hard. Okay, so there we have it. I'm going to turn this off. Okay. First of all, I'm going to start with the black and white version. Okay, there we go. Okay, there it is. So what I'm going to do now is basically the same as what I always do with all my photos in my specific kind of workflow. So I would always start with darkening the ground, removing the contrast there, because I think it's a little bit too, well, it's too distracting. I can also come up with this sort of crop. So I'm going to do the crop later on. I'm not going to worry about that. But let me first go to the background and then remove the contrast and darken it just a little bit. Okay, so that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to go in here, load selection. Okay, and again, it's a very rough selection, but it's actually tailor-made for this panel, especially if you go in here in the advanced adjustments. Okay, and also in the microzone adjustment. So what I'm going to do is then click on the remove contrast over here, low key, on either minus, double minus, or triple minus. Normally, if you want to do this, you have to have a very accurate hard selection, then go to global adjustments here, and then click this one, okay? But since I have a very rough selection, and not a super accurate selection, I need to go in here, okay? That's the same, it's the equivalent of that in global adjustments, but it's going to be blending in smoothly with the rest of the image. So I'm going to remove the contrast with a triple minus. Okay, there it is. And remember, you know, I just selected this very briefly with the object selection tool. I can already show you here, you know, it's going to look like this. So it's already very, very effective. So I'm not going to do the removal of contrast again, but what I'm going to do is to darken the background just a little bit to bring back some of the depth. Okay, because the thing is, if you do it like this, remove the contrast, darken it, you will see it gets a little bit flat. So you have to bring back the depth by adding now a little bit of darker tone. I think I've explained that in the previous webinars as well. So I'm going to load the background again. All right, now I'm going to go to creating depth. Okay, just go once with bottom to top and top to bottom. Okay, just D1, that's dark enough. Just to bring back a little bit of depth and darker tone. Okay, you can already see here, if you look at the bottom part, that it gets a little bit better, right? I'm going to do the same from top to bottom with D1, large, right? Okay, so I'm going to merge it down. So I already have this. Okay, so from here to there in just a few clicks, all right? Including the automatic selections. So it's really, really fast. So if I zoom out, you can already see that this becomes a so much better photo already, right? It's less distracting. But of course, I'm not done yet because what I'm going to demonstrate right now is to bring back some depth, some presence into the specific figure that you see here. So I'm going to start with bringing back the depth and the details in her face because it's a little bit flat. Okay, she's a little bit anonymous there. So I'm going to bring back some of the interesting details in her face. Let's get started. And I'm going to do that, by the way, with the microtone adjustment. So first of all, okay, you have to take a few samples. So you can do that with the absolute neutral, not with this one, okay, because usually the layer with all the adjustments is not going to be the accurate layer anymore to take samples off. Okay, always go to the either absolute neutral or to the original color file. Okay, so I'm going to stand on the absolute neutral. So what I want to do right now is to bring back some light first in her face. I'm going to do that with the microzones. So I take a few samples. I'm already going in here. All right. Okay, a few samples. Just zoom in a little bit. Just watch this space over there. Okay. Just take a few samples of the lightest part of her face. It's 56. 56, that's 50, 47. It's quite dark, right? It's 53, etc. There it is. Roughly around 60. So I need to be somewhere over here, okay? But I'm also going to use zone 3 there. So because the thing is, I always tend to go with the darkest value possible, the darkest zone possible, and then would also use one of the adjacent zones, either the darker or the lighter zone. But in this case, I'm going to try out the lighter zone. So the samples were over here in this range. I'm going to click on that. Okay, and make sure you're going to create the let's say the files. You're going to activate the zone by standing on the neutral version or the original color version, not on the adjusted version. Always on the neutral or the original color version. Okay, so I'm going to start with 2. Okay, it's going to do something in the background. All right, now I'm going to go back over here. All right, now I want to select her face only. There we go. Sorry, that's not the face. That's the face. Yeah. So starting with I think strong lighten. Okay. All right, that's one pass. Another pass. All right, so that's already 2 passes. Okay, I think I'm gonna do one with this one too, with the more strict. Was that a question or was that? Okay, can somebody please unmute himself? I don't know who that was, but can you please mute yourself? All right. So here it is. Okay, hold on a minute. 3 passes, and I already have this. All right, but that's not enough, of course. I'm going to do a little bit more. So now I'm going to go to zone 3, like I already explained. So go back to the absolute neutral version there. Activate it. Don't forget that. Don't create it from the latest adjustments. Always create it from the absolute neutral version or the background or the original color version, this one. Okay. So I've already created the files in the background for zone 3. I'll do the same now with the face. Right. Again, a few strong lines. Right. There it is. And one with this. Okay, maybe just a little bit more. Yeah, let's do a little bit more. So 3 passes. Okay, I just want to make her stand out. So that's one thing. So I'm gonna merge those down now. So deselect it. Don't forget to deactivate that. So I already went from here to there in terms of her face. So now I'm gonna add some darker tones as well, because if you want to make it a little bit sharper, more defined, and of course then it's not enough to just add those highlight details there back again, but also the shadow areas, of course. So let's take a few samples again. Okay, over here, go zoom in. So that's in zone 0, right? That is in zone 1. So zone 0 and zone 1, right? If you look at the darker details there, just a few more samples. All right, zone 0 and zone 1. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to start with zone 0, activate. Okay. Zoom out a little bit. All right. Go back to this. Okay, I'll load her face again. And now I'm gonna do a strong darken. Okay, that's 1 pass. See the difference over here in her eyes, right? Once again, strong darken. All right, so after 2 passes, you see this. See that? Okay, it's quite accurate, all right? So I think that's enough because I don't want to make it too dark. Now I'm going to do the zone 1. Okay, again, click on the eyeballs and then go to zone 1. And make sure you create those files. Well, if you look here, you see that there's going to be, if you click on one of those, it creates all those temporary files in the background that you don't need to know how to use. Just so you know that they are there. And that's why you also need to deactivate them to get rid of those. All right. So I've done that. Again, stand over here, load it. Now face again. Right. And now I have to be a little bit more careful because zone 1 has a wider reach. So I think if I do a strong darken, it would be too much. So I'm going to do this with a subtle darkening. So with zone 1. Let me see. Oh, sorry, I was standing on the wrong layer. You see that? Okay, I'm gonna go back there, stand over here, subtle darkening. All right, that's 1 pass. Let me see. Yeah, you can see the difference, right? It brings back some of the shadow areas. Once again, I don't want to make it too obvious. I'm not going to press the medium or strong darken. Okay, but after 2 passes, see this, right? I think it's enough for now. I'm going to deactivate this. Going to merge it down a few layers. And then let me see if I have it here. Okay, so the first group of iterations from here to there, and then added some detail and highlights and shadow areas in her face, right? With just a few clicks. So you don't need to know any technical knowledge. You don't have to create super accurate selection. You just use the available features of Photoshop and you already have it. Okay, so now I'm going to make sure that her clothes are also more defined and even brighter. So let's go do that. So what I'm going to do is to take a few new samples. Okay, stand over here. Start off with the brighter area. So over here, that's 178. Okay, just 78, 60, 160, 140, Okay, so it's anything between 140 and 180, something like that, right? So that translates to zone. Let me see. Yeah, over here, 7. Okay, and perhaps I might use this as well. Okay, the 185. So like I said, I like to use the target zone, so that is 7. Okay, but I also like to use the adjacent zone, so they can either be a lighter one or a darker one. I think I'm going to go with a lighter one. Okay, so that's what I'm going to do. So start off with zone 7, the target zone, activate it. Okay, and again, this is street. Okay, something that has nothing to do with architecture. All right, so I'm going to load her body there. All right, and then I'm going to press lighten. I'm going to use strong lighten for this. That's zone 7. Yeah, let's do it a few passes. Okay, that's one pass. You see that? Another pass. Okay, so after 2 passes, you already have this. I think for now that should be okay. Maybe one with the strict adjustments, so meaning it will bleed over the edges less, okay, than with the normal default adjustments. This is more natural. This is more strict. Okay, I can also do that. So I'm going to do that. The 3 passes in total. Okay, and I think this should be more than enough. Deselect it. I'm going to merge it down. Okay, so before, after, and before, after, and if I do this, I mean, this is already a significant change, right? Not only in how it looks, but also in how you perceive the entire scene, right? Okay, but this is not all. I'm going to deactivate that, and I also want to target the zone 8. There we go. Activate. Right. Do the same, basically. Stand over here, load her body. Do that. I'm going to use this one, strong lighten. Here, let me see. Yeah, and a little bit of this. A little bit more restricted. Okay. Deactivate. I think this should be more than enough. See that? Okay, I'm going to merge it down once again. So I have this and now this. Of course, that's not enough. Now bring back the darker details, the shadow details in her clothes. So that's what I'm going to do. Again, turn them off, go to the absolute neutral layer, take a few samples. Okay. All right, let's take a few samples over there. That's zone 1, zone 0, zone 2 or 3, something like that. $62, $40. So roughly zone 1, zone 2, maybe zone 3, but I think I'm going to go, since there are shadows, then I tend to go a little bit darker, if that makes sense. So if it's light, if I need to make something lighter, then I not only target the original zone that I sampled, but I would go one adjacent zone higher. And when I try to make it darker, I would target the original zone, of course, with the samples, and the adjacent zone darker. That's usually what I do. So I start off with zone 1, because that was my target zone, one of the target zones. There we go. Okay. By the way, what you saw there with the creation of the files in the background, you don't see that anymore in the latest UXP version. It's going to be very smooth, okay, and much faster. All right, let's go back there, right? Her body. And now I'm gonna darken it. I think I'm gonna take strong darken. All right, this is one pass. Okay, you can already see the difference, right? Another pass. Usually I would go with 2, 3 passes, something like that, because the adjustments are quite subtle. Okay, so 2 passes from here to there, and you see that it looks so much better already, right? Okay, so deactivate that, and I'm gonna target zone 2, and I think if I do that, the zone 2 is also one of the target zones. Okay. All right, load her body again. Strong darken. Let me try that. Yeah. Right, that's a small pass. You can already see the difference. And let me do this now. Then I think I'm pretty much done with what I wanted to do. So I'll show you now. So I did all this to, right? I'm gonna zoom out. There. Okay, if I turn those off, it's a significant difference, isn't it? It really makes it stand out. It's so much better than the flat version. So if I also click on the face, let's start here. This is difference. And if I start from here, it's an entirely different photograph, I would say. Okay, I'm gonna deactivate that. I'm gonna turn them on, and I'm just gonna merge them all down. And then I just wanna, okay, over here, start from here to here in just a few clicks without needing to create any selections at all. Okay, just the automatic selection tool, and that's it. So what I would do then typically right now is to come up with a sort of crop. Okay, it's a little bit too tight, I think. I would do something like, I'm just going to do it manually. Not like that. Hold on a minute. I'm just going to. A little bit like that. Okay, let's say that I'm happy with this. Okay, then you have something like this, a street portrait, right? But I would always suggest to add a little bit of toning, and I always like this specific toning, and it creates a little bit more of a an atmosphere, I think, and they're always very, very subtle. There we go. Fine art image in, I think, 50 minutes, or did I spend a little bit more time because of the explanation? But I hope you agree that with the latest features of Photoshop combined with what I already had in the advanced adjustments and micro adjustments, you can go from something rather average to something that I think is typical for my kind of work, but then not in architecture, but in street. Any questions, any remarks, any observations, whatever you want to spill and share with us, please let me know.
I have a comment, Joel. This is Jorge.
Hello, Jorge.
Certainly a very nice demonstration, and we're very happy that now you're coupled the improvements in Photoshop. This is going to make our life much easier. It's very nice. Just a quick question, Joel. I know this was very fast, but I wonder if you would normally have separated the arms from the clothes.
Yes,
because,
sorry.
Yeah, because the right arm almost disappeared.
Oh yeah, but I could have separated that too, you know, but I didn't do that for the sake of demonstration.
I know,
of course,
I understand that.
yeah.
So thank you, Joe.
Yeah, so normally I would have separated that, but I wouldn't have created a very accurate selection. I would just use the object selection tool by Photoshop, because once again, in combination with this panel, with the advanced and microzone adjustments that create all the super smooth blending with the rest of the image, it's actually the perfect companion for the panel. It's like they built it for me almost, you know. It's like they built it for this panel, because now the advanced adjustments and the microzone adjustments, they're really shining now, I think, you know. And
yes, very nice, very nice.
And I can show you what I mean with that, because if you look here, you know, I mean, this, okay, if you look here, I mean, you don't see any strange kind of things happening there. It's just very natural, right? There's no strange artifacts. There are no strange, whatever there is that might be strange, but it's so super smooth. It's so super accurate at the same time and natural. And that's, I believe, you know, the one of the most strong assets of this panel. You know, it's really very powerful now.
Definitely, those halos that come up sometimes are really a pain in the neck, and is one of the most difficult aspects of the whole workflow. So this is really a welcome addition. Thank you, Joe.
Okay, so this is really a quick demonstration with Street, and you know, it doesn't have to take long. So let me do something else now.
There's
yeah.
One more question, Joel. Jeff had a question that was interesting. I think you've already answered it. He says, at what step would you optimize the selection of the none? And I'm thinking the answer to that is you don't.
You don't have to optimize it. That's the beauty of it. Because the thing is, the advanced adjustments have built-in optimization and built-in feathering and microzone as well. So those are the two only sections in the panel that have those built-in optimization and feathering in such a way that you don't even notice that, you know, because all the other ones require very accurate hard masks like grading depth and also the Pro Tools, you know, and they're actually very useful and very good for architecture. But if you have something like still life, like I'm doing right now, or street or portraiture, then basically you can do just this and that, and just the object selection tool, and I think you can create a fine art looking image in less than 15 minutes. I mean, I've done the none earlier today in what is it, in 10 minutes. And it was so super accurate, you know. Okay, so I'm going to do this. All right, there we go. Good. For now, I'm going to process this image, but I'm going to do it in color. So not in black and white, but I'm going to do this in color. All right. So first of all, what I'm going to do is to crop the image a little bit, because there's some distracting light there. Okay, it needs to be a little bit tighter, because what I'm also going to do with this is to do image upscaling and then compare before and after. And then you will see that actually after image upscale, so if you resize your image to a much larger image, and usually that would result in some artifacts. It would result in some strange things that are not normal, and that's normal, you know, because the thing is you're adding pixels, and that can never be accurate. So usually the resized image is always less accurate, but I'm going to show you that the quality there will be preserved, and in some cases gets even better, which is strange, right? So this is based on the already available AI technology from Photoshop. So basically, it's my youngest son that built this image upscaling thing. And don't worry, my youngest son is studying computer sciences. Okay, so he knows everything about it. He actually knows more about it than I do. All right, but he did that, and well, he did a great job. Okay, I'm going to show you later. But it's very useful for people who are creating fine art images. I want to show them off in galleries, because then you always need something a little bit larger than normal, right? So let me demonstrate that. But first, I'm going to process the image first. I'm going to crop it first, because the thing is, if I'm going to do this demonstration with upscaling, I'm afraid that if I use images that are too large that I'm going to crash out of this session. And I don't want to do that. So I'm going to resize it quite a bit. Okay, make it a little bit smaller. Let's say, I think this should be enough, you know, then at least it's not going to be such a big file. Something like that. Okay, gonna click OK. There we go. So this is going to be our starting point. And let me see the image size now. That is something like 4 by 4. That is, okay, it's not entirely square, but okay, something like 16, 18 megapixels, something like that. All right. Okay, so again, this is going to be in color. I'm going to follow the same kind of process that I would do with all of my photos. Only difference here, I think, you know, is that I don't need to darken and remove the contrast in the ground. Because if you look at it, you see that the ground's already quite flat, quite dark. By the way, this has been light painted. So I don't know if you guys know Harold Ross. I mean, the well-known light painter artist. So basically, I've been using those techniques from Harold Ross in this photograph. And I took this photo something like 5-6 years ago. Okay, but it's a light painting technique. So I'm not using any flashlights, whatever. Just use my my flashlight and then just paint it light over the Nautilus shell. That's what I did. So, but that's on a related note. So now I'm going to start with the selections first. So go here again, object selection tool. Okay, what did I do? Then set it to normal. Okay, 1 second, please, because I'm spilling my coffee over here. First of all, I want to have the shell, but also this bottle that's in the background. So I'm just going to click on it. All right, so there we have it. Quite fast, right? And even though there's almost no contrast there, Photoshop succeeds in creating a very good selection of that bottle, which is great. And it doesn't need to be accurate in my case. So I'm just going to save it as bottle. All right. I also want to have a selection of the Nautilus shell, of course. So I'm going to indicate that this is what I want to have. Okay. Save selection, call it shell. All right. I also want to have this part of the Nautilus shell selected separately and this part, because this is I want to treat this differently than this part. Okay. So what I'm going to do is to do the same, and I'm saying I only need to have this part just roughly indicated. And you see that it's going to roughly do that for you. And that's good enough. Maybe, oh man, I'm going to do it again because I actually want to have it there. Okay, anyway, it doesn't work like that. I can make it a little bit more refined, but I'm not going to do that. I'm going to save this. Okay, that's going to be shell right part. Okay, so now all I have to do is to load the selection of the entire shell like this. Load it again. Subtract it, and now I have this part. Okay, so I'm going to save that. Save selection, shell, left part. Right? So that's all I need. So, like I said, I'm not going to do the removal of contrast and darkening of the ground because it's already dark. It already has no contrast at all. Okay, just a little bit here, a little bit of light, but that's okay. All right. So deselect it. So, like I said, I'm not going to do this in black and white. I'm going to do this in color. So I'm going to go straight to the microzones, and I'm going to start with this part here, because the thing is, what I think is that it's a little bit light, bright, right? And I just want to make it darker. I just want to reveal the shadow areas just a little bit more in there. So I'm going to start with the microsounds. I'm going to start sampling the darker tones over there in that part of the shell. So let me see what I'm going to look at here. I'm going to zoom in. Turn that off because it's a little bit annoying with the blue. That's 172, 60, just go in here. That's 32. That is 20. So here I'm in zone 0 and zone 1. Basically, all the shadow areas are covering quite a large range, right? I mean, this is 80. So I see zone 0, I see zone 1, I see zone 2, I see zone 3 and 4. So what you can do then, if you want to cover all those darker tones in the shell, because here they're much darker than, let's say, the shadows there, I would suggest to just go with, well, let's start with zone 2, for example, and then you cover zone 3 and zone 4, just to make sure that you cover all the range of shadow tones in the shadow areas. And the shadow areas are anything from, let's say, zone 0 up to zone 4, right? So zone 0 to zone 4, those are considered to be the shadow areas. So I'm going to start with zone 2 and then cover 3 and 4 to reveal all those details there. So let me do that. Zone, I said zone 2, right? Okay. Zone 2, activate. All right. Load the right part of the shell. And now I'm gonna darken it 2 times, strong darken. Okay, and once with this. Okay, so now I've already done this. Okay, you see it gets a lot more detail already, right? Okay, so I'm deactivating that. And now I'm going to do the same for zone 3. So just want to cover all the shadow areas. Activate it. All right, go back in here, stand over there, do the same. Basically, a child can do this, you know, and strong darken. You don't need to have any technical knowledge. You don't have to be super accurate. I mean, the panel does all the work for you and Photoshop does all the selection creation for you that is good enough for this panel. Okay, so this is after the 2 new passes. See that? This is what I wanted to achieve over here to bring back some details there. All right. So I'm going to go back over here, deactivate it, and now zone 4, darker midtones or shadow areas. Okay, so I'm going to click on that. Stand over there. Do it again. And now I'm gonna, let me see, do that. Okay. And do this. Right, so I'm happy with that. Deactivate that. Just gonna merge it down and show you what the result is after all those darkening passes. So zoom out. It's quite a significant difference, isn't it? From here to there. And now it looks like the Nautilus shell is shining, right? Just because you added some darker tones. Because a lot of people tend to add light to make something, to create some sort of a sheen, but actually it works the same way if you add some shadows, some targeted shadows. And you see that here. Now this is being it's being brought back alive almost, a specific section over there. It gets this specific kind of sheen just by adding shadows. Right, so I've done that. That is step 1. So now I'm going to do the same for this part here, right? And I'm gonna first start with, let me see, I'm gonna start with adding some light there, okay? So I'm gonna sample the image for the lightest areas. Okay, so I'm gonna zoom in a little bit. And watch this, okay? Because the thing is, these are the adjustments, and look at here, the transition is so super smooth, okay? You don't see any strange artifacts or edges or whatever. It's just almost perfect. See that? Okay, just want to point that out. Yeah, let me do this first. So the highlights in this section. 190, 210, 150. So again, a wide range of lighter tones, right? It's 150. If we go here, let's say over here, that is almost in the shadow area. You see that? That's 110, so around 100, around 110. So I'm thinking of, okay, since it covers a wide range of lighter tones, to do the same as with the shadow areas. So I'll start at something like zone 8. Okay, then I try to cover all the other light highlight areas like zone 7 and zone 6. Right, so that's what I'm going to do. 8, 7, 6. Okay, let's start there then. Midlights, activate. Load that part of the Nautilus shell. Okay, then I would do strong lighten. Okay, once again. Right, so I already have this, okay. Then I'm going to do the same for zone 7. Strong lighten. I mean, what's there to explain now? I just push a few presets, that's all, right? And okay, there we have it. And then also zone 6, because I had 8, 7, and 6, and I want to cover a very wide range of lighter tones. So I need to go in here, of course, if I click on down. So activate zone 6. All right, and one of that. Okay, deactivated. All right, so what I've done is this, okay? I went from here to there, okay? Then now I also need to bring back some shadow details in there. Yeah, so that's what I'm gonna do. Start here. Now look at the shadow areas. That is zone 0, zone 1, zone 2. So I think, since I don't want to make those very dark shadows too dark, I'm going to do it with, let's say, the darker tones in zone 2, if that makes sense. So something like this, right? Those kind of darker tones that you see there. That is roughly zone 2. Yeah? Because you have to take the average value of those 3 numbers that you see there. So zone 2, it's going to be light shadows, activate. Go in here, load that part of the shell. Sorry, that's left. Now I'm gonna strong darken it. Okay, it's one pass, another pass with this. So I'm going to deactivate it. Just I can also remove all those intermediate layers, but I'm just going to do this. So we went from here. I'm going to zoom out to there. It's different, isn't it? It's more. It's a different kind of perception. And again, I've done this very quickly with just rough selections by the object selection tool from Photoshop and the panel. So what I also like to do then is to come up with something like toning. Especially with color files, with color images, I like to use toning because it makes the colors even more subtle, and it creates this very harmonious color palette. Okay, so that's what I'm going to do, and of course I'm going to use my favorite preset there. Okay, just a little bit of that up to 70-80, and you see the difference, right? It's before and after. It becomes so much more aesthetic in my view, right? So I went from here to there, and again in a few clicks. Okay, so what I'm going to do right now is the following. I'm going to merge this down, and I just want to show you now if you can detect any strange kind of things, but you're not going to be able to because it's really very accurate. Okay, you see that before, after, it's quite a change. Look here, look at the transitions and the edges. You don't see anything. It's super accurate, actually. Look here. Okay. Actually, this should have been a little bit darker, but I didn't do that. I forgot to see that. I forgot to deactivate one of those zones. So I'm gonna. Yeah, I forgot to do that. Just gonna remove them manually. So what I want to do now is to rescale the image. Okay, so Mike, I'm going to do that. If I crash out of the meeting, you know what to do, right? You continue the demonstration.
Absolutely.
Okay, so I'm going to merge this down. Okay, get rid of all the selections. I'm going to duplicate this layer. Okay, to put it in a new file so I can do before and after. So this is the duplicated layer. Okay, as a reference point. This is the original one that I've been working on, and I'm going to resize this image 2 times, and then we're going to compare it. Okay, hopefully this goes well. Okay, it's done. Okay, you can see here that it's now zoomed in at 30%, right? And here, the image size, that is now twice the size, right? I mean, it was something like 4K by 4K, something like that. Now it's almost 9K. Well, it's 9K here and almost 9K there, all right? So I'm going to compare that with this. Okay, let me try to find the right size. Okay, so comparison makes a lot of sense. So this is before, sorry, this is before, this is after. Okay, I'm going to zoom in gradually. This the same. Okay. Again, zoom in. Okay, before, after. Okay, zoom in again. Okay, now this gets to 66%. This after, before. I'm going to zoom in even more. Now the original file is zoomed in at 100%. All right, this is 50% now. Okay, let's have a closer look. Try to look. Okay, let's have a look. I'm going to scroll up a few clicks. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Do the same with this. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Then I should have the same kind of view. Yes. So try to look at some of those details over there. So this is the original file. Okay.
Joel, can you put them side by side?
Well, actually, I don't think so, because I'm using different kind of, because this is set at 50%, the larger one, and this at 100%. Okay, but let me do it like this. I'm going to zoom in again. Okay, now this is set at 60%. I'm going to have to do that now. Okay, now you see that there's a difference. I have to do this now. Okay, now we have the same size. This is the original one. Look at the edge there. This is the original file, okay? This is the new one. You see that? There's no jagged edge there. Original. I hope you can see the difference there. New one. I'm going to scroll up a few clicks. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Oh, I lost count. 9, 10. Okay, hold on. I need to scroll up once again. Yeah. So let's have a look at this part over here. Okay, let's scroll up 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 more. Here, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, so this part here, see that? The original file. This is the enlarged file. Do you see any difference? It's actually a little bit better even. It has more smoother edges. So this is the original one. Look at this too. And now the new one. So basically it has increased in size 2 times, and it actually looks even better than the original one, which is quite, I think, quite good. Okay. All right, so I've done this, okay, in a matter of a few clicks. Any questions for now? Any remarks, observations, critique?
Susha has a question. Can you control the amount of upscaling?
No, you can only upscale it twice, okay? And usually that should be enough. You can, of course, you can upscale that once again. So in total 4 times or even 6 times, but I wouldn't recommend doing that. I think 2 times already quite a bit. You can control, let's say, the noise. You can reduce noise if you want to, because noise always has to be created if you upscale your image, okay? Because you need to add some pixels. But you see that we've done it in such a way that you actually don't see a difference. And if you see a difference, actually the new file is actually even smoother and better. Okay. Any more questions?
Does this compare favorably with a tool like Gigapixel?
Perhaps, yeah. I haven't made the comparison yet. I was just looking at the panel, and I checked the before and after results. And for me, what was important is to increase the size of the image without any image quality loss. Okay, and I believe that in 9 out of 10 cases we've achieved that. Okay. If there are no more questions, you guys something. What do you think of the expedited workflow, the ease of it, and how you can benefit from the new object selection feature in Photoshop if you use it with the advanced and microzone adjustments? I really believe it has increased accuracy, speed, it's actually quite, I think it's quite astonishing that what has happened with the new object selection feature from Photoshop and what it does to the effectivity of the panel. I don't know if you also see that.
So let me clarify something, since nobody else is asking a question. Did I see no luminosity masks and no what the what's it called, the refreshing, where you come in and you redo, restore. No restoring and no luminosity masks. Is that right?
That's right. Yes, correct.
Now, is that going to completely replace the need for those two things, or is it just certain images?
It's well, you always need to have the restore, especially if you work with architecture. So architecture is always a more, let's say, elaborate workflow. It's more complicated for the reason that I mentioned in the beginning of this webinar, right?
Yep.
But so if you're not working with that kind of stuff, with let's say, but multiple planes, because that's a problem with multiple planes in architecture. But still life or landscapes or portraiture, they always have one or two planes, namely the ground and the figure, because there are no edges in a person. Well, in some persons there are, but usually a person doesn't have any edges, right? Or a flower or whatever, all those natural objects. So basically then you don't need to use those hard masks, those super accurate hard masks, and you can do without the restore. You can just go to advanced microzone adjustments, a quick selection with the object selection feature, and that's it. And you can already create something like this.
Can I just come in there, Joe?
So, go ahead, Ed.
Yeah, just to sort of comment on your question, Joe. Great presentation so far, by the way. Really enjoying it. The object selection tool is a game changer. I mean, in the first image of the none, I mean, obviously one has to understand the thinking behind your workflow, but to be able to invert the none and create the background and then use low key to diffuse based on figure ground principles, the entire background, so the none sticks out, is now so easy. Instead of playing around with selection tools or color range masks or luminosity masks, it's a doddle. Do you know what I mean? It really is easy.
Especially for people who are working with portraiture. And I know, Ed, that you do a lot of portraiture. I mean, I think that's going to be of a huge benefit for you, for your portraits.
Yeah, absolutely. But in addition to that, the whole principle of the Artisan Pro X panel and your workflow is, if you can control luminosity and then control shapes, you control everything.
Exactly, and that's what we're doing actually here. Right?
Exactly.
I mean,
exactly.
With the advanced adjustment, you're controlling the shapes. With the microzones, you're controlling the light. And basically, you can do that all manually with Pro Tools and with the creating depth. And but then you do that specifically for architecture, where you want to have more control. But in cases like this, I mean, this kind of control's more than sufficient. You don't need to have even more control. Why would you do that? I mean, you're wasting your time. I mean, I'm creating this or the none in just a matter of minutes, literally. It's not even being exaggerated. So if you spend, let's say, 1 hour on an image like this, I think you can create images that are quite superb.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So fantastic, Joe. Really appreciate it.
Thank you. Okay, I'm going to do the next demonstration if there are no more questions for now, or are there some more questions? No? Okay.
Probably some people would like to know how much longer we're going to
go. I'm going to do this and then one more image, a very fast one, and that's it. Okay. Let me see. Maybe. Okay, I want to do this too. So actually, those two images, and that's it. Is that okay? Or
yeah, if people have to leave, they can watch the recording.
You can watch the recording. Okay, so let me do this one in black and white. All right, so let me do this. So this is a scene of some tree trunks. Okay, so what I'm going to do is to make it black and white. I'm going to darken the background. So then you may ask yourself, okay, what is the ground here? You know, because it's all intertwined with each other. Those tree trunks, the leaves. So it's really hard if you want to do this the old-fashioned way, you know, to separate ground from figure. It's almost going to be impossible, but not with the object selection feature and with this panel. So I'm going to show you. First of all, we're going to do a black and white conversion like this. And I'm going to do some quick selections with, I prefer to do that in color, but you can also do it in black and white. But the thing is, the object selection feature in Photoshop works on a color base and on a contrast base and combine them together. So it's always better to create your automatic selections by standing on the original color layer. So Photoshop comes up with an even better selection of the object. Okay. So let me do that. I'm gonna come over here and let's say, you see, I just wanna, okay, look at that. It's already detecting it. Okay, click on that. Okay, it takes a while. Let me see. So that's what Photoshop has selected. Now, let me see it like this. You see, it has that and that part. I want to add this part. I also want to add that part and also those parts. And it doesn't have to be accurate, okay, because the panel is taking care of that. So I'm going to add this part here. So just click on that. Sorry, oh, hold on a minute. I have to click on plus. I'm adding there. Okay, so I'm going to do this. All right. Let me see. Yeah, so I've added that. And you don't need to worry about this, okay? I'm also doing the same for this part. Okay, let me check it like this. And I also want to have that part. Okay, so this. Okay, and I think those are the most important tree trunks. Let me check if I have them all. And once again, okay, you see this abrupt stop here, the selection. It doesn't matter because that's what we're going to solve with the pen. Okay, so I'm just going to save this. Call it trunks, right? Deselected. And now I'm going to go in here, and then I'm saying I'm going to duplicate this, invert it, and call it ground. Like that. Trunks and ground. And normally you can't work with this because this is really too rough. You know, that's by far not accurate enough to come up with a good fine art image. Okay, so but I'm going to do that with this. So first of all, like everyone already know by now, is that I'm going to darken the ground and remove the contrast in the ground. So let me start with that. Okay, and since I'm doing the advanced adjustments, it makes sure that wherever hard edges there are, it's going to blend in smoothly with the rest. Okay, I'm going to do this. Right, one more pass. Okay, I already have this. So I went from here to there. It's already quite a change, isn't it? Okay. But obviously I'm not done yet. So since I removed so much contrast that what you see then is that it gets a little bit flat. So now I'm adding some darker tones to bring back some depth. Yeah. And for that, I can either use, let's say, the advanced adjustment, the smart linear, but for now, I'm just going to use the gradient depth because I can also do that, right? So you can choose between that or this. I like to use this because then I can, let's say, control the darkness around the edges even more, because then the edges are going to be darker than, let's say, the center. With advanced adjustment, you just darken everything. All right. So I'm going to do this, gradient depth. So top to bottom, but an LD1 should be enough. Right. You see, can already see that it becomes less flat. Bottom to top do the same. All right. Deselect. So I'm going to show you before, after. And I challenge you to find something that doesn't look right. Okay, maybe it was better if I hadn't used the the gradient depth, and better to use advanced adjustments, because then the transitions from selected to non-selected part are even better. Okay, but I've done that for now. So and it still looks good. Okay, so now what I want to do is to bring back the light in the tree trunks. Okay, to make them stand out. So I'm going to merge them down. Right. So I'm going to stand on here and then take a few samples. Lighter areas first. 180, 151, 120. Well, it's 128. 183. I think 180, 190 is the are the lightest spots, right? I think so. So let's get started with that. 180, 190, something like, I think this. And then I'm gonna use the dark lights and maybe the light midtones as well. So try to cover a wider range of tone zones. Basically the same principles with the Nautilus shell, right? Because it has a lot of lighter tones over here, lighter tone values. So I'm going to start with this, activate. Right, go in here, load it. Nope. Set trunks. Okay. There we go. Let me go with the strong lighted. Maybe that is too much, but I'm going to try it anyway. You can always go back. Okay, let me see. Yeah, you see that subtle lightning? I'm going to do it again with this, with the strict adjustments. Okay. Let me see. So before, after, okay. Deactivate, gonna use a darker zone now for zone 7. Oh, hold on a minute. I forgot to deactivate or not. Okay, hold on a minute. Zone 7. I did 8, right? Before, yeah. So now I need to have zone 7. Strong lighter. Okay, let me see. Yeah. See that here? I must make sure that it doesn't get too light. So I'm going to deactivate it for now. I'm going to use zone 6 now. Right. Trucks. All right. Strong lighted. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Once again. You see the difference, right? I want to cover this too, but these are in a darker area. So what I'm going to do is to make separate samples of that part. Okay, so I'm going to go to that part of the image. That's 109, 90, 88, so around the 90, I think. Okay, so that's what I'm going to look for. Then I need to be in this part, I think this or that. I'm going to try this 70, just to cover this part as well. So load trunks. Okay, so I'm going to affect those as well. So what I'm going to do is to click on the rectangular marquee tool, set it to subtract. I'm just going to subtract this because that has already been affected. I don't want that. Just get rid of this. Okay, so this is left. And now I'm going to lighten it. Okay, then I click on something. Okay, I'm losing my selection because I clicked on the, oh, there it is. Okay. A little bit more. It's a very subtle change, right? But that should be enough. So I already went from, okay, I'm going to deactivate it. Just stand over here. Okay. So from here to there is quite a considerable change, isn't it? I mean, this is something that you cannot do that easily in the old situation with the normal hard masking, with the normal tools. But here you can do it in actually a few clicks. And of course, I would add a little bit of toning. There we go. And of course, in a normal situation, I would do even more, right? But it's just to show you that you can radically change the appearance of an image in a way that is super fast and super accurate. And again, I'll show you that. This, and now you only see the trunks, right? And I'm going to zoom in so you can see for yourself if you see some strange things, but you're not going to be able to find it. Okay, it's all very subtle, smooth, and very effective. Look at this here, for example. Okay. All right, any questions for now? Is this a clear demonstration? And is it clear for everyone in the audience what you can do with those two simple new features one simple feature in Photoshop combined with the already existing features in our panel? Can you now see the efficiency of it, the power of it, and how easy it is to just manipulate any image to your artistic vision and in line with your artistic vision, and there are almost no limits anymore. That's
Jim
what.
had it.
Yeah.
Jim had an interesting question.
Mm-hmm.
Do you envision using the object selection tool in architectural images in conjunction with hard selections? For example, if you have an image and there were trees adjacent to a building or other objects that weren't straight lined, would you recommend using the techniques in the advanced masking tutorial?
I would always use, let's say, in the advanced masking tutorial, that's specifically meant for more complicated images, especially architecture, where you need to have a lot of control over the shape. Okay, but then I also mean a lot of control. If you want to control it perfectly, then go with that. Then go create all those accurate hard masks. But here, again, we're talking about natural shapes here. So there's no, let's say, you don't expect, it's not predictable. I mean, a natural shape isn't predictable. You cannot say, okay, I see this, I expect that. with architecture, you know, if you forget to select a specific part and you see something that you see not a straight line, you know, you see it immediately, even if you're a few pixels off. But anything that if you have an architectural image, for example, but there are also natural objects like trees in there. I would say mask the architectural objects with the advanced masking technique, with the old-fashioned way with hard mask. Okay, because especially if you push the contrast, then you really need to be very accurate. But for all the natural objects like trees or people, just use the automatic object selection tool together with the advanced and microscope adjustment. That should be enough. Is that a good answer to your question? Was it Jim?
Yeah, I think he was also asking if you have a photo that has mixed architecture with trees, would you then use both techniques?
Yes, absolutely. I would do so. Yeah. Any other questions? Because I'm going to go to the last demonstration and then we should be done. But I hope for now that this is clear. Okay, I'm just going to show you again. All right, this is something that if you would see it for the first time, I took this image 4 or 5 years ago and I wanted to work on it. I thought, okay, that's going to cost me a lot of time. I don't think it's worth it. But now, the first thing I thought about was this image. And I could easily create something like this in a matter of a few minutes. So if I would spend, let's say 1 hour, maybe 2 hours on this image, I can create something even more interesting than what I already have here. But I hope the idea is clear that you can radically change an image in a way that doesn't, let's say, reveal artifacts or strange edges or whatever. Okay. Okay, last image. This one. So this is one that I recently posted on my Facebook, I think it was, yeah, on Instagram. So I'm just going to show you that this is really easy to do with a pen, okay, and with the new object selection feature. So again, this is going to be processed in color, not in black and white. Okay, we start with this, okay, object selection tool. And I created a section before Photoshop introduced this, so it took me quite a while to create that selection of that tree trunk. Now we just do this, you know, and there it is. It's not super accurate if you compare it to my own selection, but it's not needed, okay? For now, it's not needed if you could do this together with the advanced microscope adjustments. So I'm gonna save that as trunk. Let's say mill. All right. I'm gonna select this too. Okay, so start over here. We'll roughly do this. There we have it. Okay, I'm gonna get rid of that part. So I'm just gonna click here. Just take my brush and that's just darken that. Okay, I don't want to include that. Just that. Okay, it's not super accurate again. Save selection. Trunk on the right. Then this one too. Right. Trunk on the drink. Okay. Forgive me for that. It's trunk. All right. Then this one also, I think. Yeah, let's do that too. Right. Trunk mid left. There we go. So there we have all of them. Right. And you can see that, for example, if you look at this selection, it's quite rudimentary, right? I mean, it's not super accurate, but that's okay. There we go. So I have them all, and now I want to do this. I'm going to select all. All right. All right, I'm gonna subtract them, so I have the ground. Right, subtract. 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 So if I'm correct, I have them all subtracted, so now I can save that as ground. And there we go. Let me check that. Okay, this looks pretty decent. So I'm going to go in here. I'm going to start with the ground. I'm not going to do this in black and white. I'm going to go in here. And then I think I'm going to use this. Right? Yeah. So it's already less distracting. So what I want to do now is to make it a little bit darker here and maybe add some light there, but okay, let's leave it for now. I can always do that later. I'm going to work on the trees a little bit. Okay, so I'm going to load that, the trunk in the middle, that is this one, right? And now, instead of with the microzones, let's just start off with this, just to make it a little bit lighter. Let's go use this. Okay, it's very subtle. That's okay. I'm going to do this as well. And then I'm going to work with some of the microzones. Let's say, do this, not too obvious, just a little bit lighter. Okay. Right. The same for the tree on the left. All right. Yep. It's good. No, this one. That's the tree mid left. Right. Let's make it a little bit brighter. M2. Oh, I've got to select that. Okay, hold on a minute. L2. All right, let me see. All right, so basically, you know, just going to merge it down already. Just a few simple adjustments, okay? Now I'm going to do the trick with the luminosity mask with the microzones, basically. So stand over here, make sure you have selected this. So I'm going to have a look. That's 140, 60, 70, 140, 60, 70. Let's say roughly 170. Okay, so I'm going to use that. That should be in this range. Zone 7. Activate. Right, then we go in here. Sorry, in here. Load trunk in the middle. Right, now let's have a closer look. I'm gonna strong lighten. Okay, that's one pass. Yeah, another one with the strict adjustments. Okay, so after 2 adjustments, go from here to there. I'll do the same trick with this tree there. So I have to create, sorry, I have to take a few new samples for that part. So that is zone 2. Roughly it is zone 2. Yeah, I'm gonna go with zone 2. That should be good. Maybe zone 1, but I think 2 is better. Let's trunk on the right. Yep. And I'm gonna strong lighten. Yeah, now one with the strict adjustments. Okay, that is quite nice. Yeah. I'm just going to show you what you see here. If you, okay, this is before the original file, original image, after, before, after. Looks quite credible, right? Just look here, before, after. Yeah, and I'm going to do this here as well. So I have to deactivate this, and I'm going to lighten this up a little bit. So again, new samples. 109, 91, 84. So something around 90, 100. All right, so let's have a look here. That should be in this area. Dark midtones. Trunk on the left. Strong. Bit of this. And then finally, I'm going to do this in the middle there. Right. Deactivate. I think this one in the middle is also zone 2, maybe 1. Sure, let's have a look. 75, 72, 60, 60, 70, something like that. So I need to be around here. Okay. So 2. Just to reveal the highlights in that tree in the background. Right, tree left, mid left. There we go. Strong lighting. Okay. Just a little bit. Okay, do another one. Okay. So just done really quickly. Okay, I'm not going to merge them all down to show the end effect. I can do so much more. Normally, I would also lighten this part, but I just want to make it a very quick demonstration. And I think you get the idea. Okay, so here we go from here to there. And then typically, again, especially with color images, always add a little bit of split tone to make the colors more subtle, less saturated, more harmonious. Okay, so that's really important. I like to do that. Something like this. And so basically here, in just a matter of a few minutes, I think. So that was the last demonstration. Is it a little bit clear for everyone how powerful this is, this combination of object selection feature together with the panel, and of course the entire workflow of removing the contrast in the ground after you've done the analysis on, okay, what is the ground, what is the figure, and then bring back the details in the ground, but also, and especially in the figure, of course. Is that clear? And you can do that so easily, so fast, and actually very accurately, just with a few clicks.
It's a very powerful combination, Joel. It really is. I mean, to be able to, I mean, using the pen tool for those trees would take forever.
Absolutely, it's. I don't think it's worth it, you know, because
no,
I've done this manually with the before they introduced this new feature, and just selecting this tree trunk. Well, it cost me a lot of time, you know. It took me a few hours, and now I've done almost all the things that I wanted to do with this image in just a matter of minutes.
I would have tried creating depth on that tree.
Yeah, me too. I would have done that too. So I would go from right to left.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah.
But I thought, you know, I said this is going to be 1 hour. Well, I'm already a little bit late, 1 hour and 20 minutes.
But you're always late, Joe.
I know I'm like I'm always like that. Any other questions, remarks, observations? I'm just going to look at the comments in here. All right. Is
Joel,
there,
a lot of people in the comments,
yeah.
quite a few people said that it opened up new possibilities for them that
Mhm.
they didn't see before or made things a lot easier.
I think so too. Yeah, and especially with landscaping, just because the thing is, I already saw those possibilities before, but the thing is that you always needed to select them manually, and that was not easy, especially when you're dealing with stuff like this or the previous photograph with the trunks, with all the leaves. I mean, where do you start? Where do you end? And if you are not accurate enough, then it's not it's going to look like nothing, it's not going to be good enough. But now we can do this so easily. And yeah, I really believe that this new feature by Photoshop is really a perfect combination for this panel. It's like it's been made for this panel. Sometimes I get this feeling that it really matches the panel in such a great way.
I think the idea that you presented today about not having to be completely accurate with the selections for things in the natural world, not architecture, was for a lot of people very freeing. I mean, I remember spending hours and hours trying to accurately mask, natural objects, and it's just not worth it.
It's not worth it. And I think I made it more intuitive right now, and Photoshop made it more intuitive. And yeah, you've seen today that this is not about architecture. I mean, a lot of people think that this panel, it's only for architecture. Well, it's not true. I've been telling people for years already, you can do anything with it. So I thought, you know what, I'm just going to show them today that this is going to be even easier. And it is easier in terms of processing. I'm not in terms of photographing it, because the thing is, if you shoot landscapes or tree or portraiture, it's equally challenging as when you shoot architecture. But in terms of processing, I think architecture is so much more complicated because you're dealing with all the edges, creative presence per plane, and you're not dealing with that in landscapes or portraiture.
So
And
in your current panel, you've maintained compatibility backwards back to version 21 of Photoshop. What are the compatibilities going to be going forward?
I think there's always going to be some backward compatibility, but you cannot go to very old version of Photoshop because the architecture behind Photoshop is also changing. So if you cannot say, okay, next year's panel is going to be compatible to, let's say, Photoshop 2016. That's not going to be possible because at this point in time, if you go back to Photoshop 2019, then this is not going to work. The panel is not going to work anymore. So there's always this sort of sync with Photoshop versions. So we are adapting to that. So if Photoshop says, okay, you cannot use older version of the Photoshop like 2015, then you cannot do that with the panel either. It's very much in sync with Photoshop. Okay, if there are no more questions, no more remarks, then I would call it a day today. You can always ask me questions over email, and I would always suggest and recommend to go to my new information knowledge hub on the internet for the panel, because I'm going to put a lot of information on there.